I don't want to spend too much time introducing Yanni Hufnagel, the CEO and founder of Lemon Perfect. He's going to do a great job of telling his own story. But as we dig into how he started and grew Lemon Perfect, we're going to talk about some of the key decisions he's had to make and what's driving him to make them, what his lens is. So please welcome our first entrepreneur story of the day, Yanni Hufnagel.
Good to see you.
Great to see you. Look at it, turned out already.
Always.
Where'd you learn to do that?
I think from day one. I was at a BevNET Live conference, and I saw, might have been, I think it was actually Mike Rapoli with a body armor, and we'll put this over here, and he just had it perfectly faced, so learn from the best.
Very cool. So it feels like, we've talked about this, the core principle behind Lemon Perfect has been survive and advance. Was that always the idea?
I think early on, maybe a few weeks in, right? And from then it's been every day, every week, every month, every year, just find a way to live another day, right? And we've really, as a group, embodied the principle of just finding a way to survive, advance. And it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, beverage is almost an impossible game, right? But we say hard, not impossible. And look, next week we're going to ship a truck that's going to have our 100 millionth bottle on it. We'll do over $100 million in retail sales this year, so we feel like we're on our way, but there are certainly challenges that continue to persist.
How long has it taken you to get to that $100 million run rate?
We're in year 7, and you know what I'll say is there are 2 ways that we wouldn't be here. 1, you don't grow, and 2, you run out of money, right? So we always think about that when we wake up in the morning. And then over time, you start to layer in a great team, right? And capital partners, and we've just been very fortunate that we've been able to do a lot of great things over the years.
So let's back it up. Tell me how you started Lemon Perfect and what it was like at the start.
Well, I coached college basketball for 10 years, and the short story is that my last year coaching, I was at the University of Nevada in Reno, and I was on a recruiting trip working for a coach named Eric Musselman, who's now the head coach at USC, and he wanted me to go see this kid named Eric Poulsen, who we knew couldn't play, big 6'11" center, and from Reno, Nevada to Petaluma, California. He was at Santa Rosa Junior College. I saw a little Starbucks on the side of the road right at the end of the trip. And I stopped in, I'm a big iced coffee drinker. And in that strip mall, there was a little sports nutrition store. And I went in to get a couple of protein bars. And the man working behind the register, he said, "Do you coach for the team?" I had a Nevada basketball polo on. I said, "Yes." And he said, "No way, my dream is to be a strength and conditioning coach for an NBA basketball team." I said, "No way." So we exchanged.
We got one of those coming in later.
Yeah, I know, Bart, right? Yeah, exactly. So business cards were still a thing. And I gave him my card. I said, "Matt, if I can ever be helpful at any time, let me know." And about a week later, he sent me a draft of a book that he was working on called The Ketogenic Diet, right? And this was right as keto was becoming mainstream, certainly in the natural channel, right? And in the back of Matt's book are all these sample meal plans. And every day started by drinking organic lemon water. And I was getting beat up at the time. Coach Musselman, he's a friend now, but he's hard to work for. And I was looking for some structure in my routine, diet plan, training plan. And I said, "Matt, I'm in A through Z." And lemon water in the morning became a part of my daily routine. And, he had all these sample meal plans. And again, I tried to follow it as best as I could. And I hated it, right? I mean, there was one Whole Foods in Reno, buy organic lemons, cut the lemon, squeeze the lemon juice all over, bland taste. I threw my hands up in the air most, but I stuck with it. And this is the path of destiny. Coach Musselman's wife her sister was on the field marketing team at Bai, okay? And so we were drinking a lot of Bai around the office. This is 2017, right at the height of their growth story.
Sure.
And I'm in the locker room towards the end of the season, the video room actually, which was right next to the locker room, and I just had a moment. I said, hold on. Can we take lemon water and all of the nutritional benefits of organic lemon and make it taste good? And that was the seed of the journey. And I didn't run out of the locker room that day and go start a beverage brand, right? A couple weeks later, I'm in Santa Monica having lunch with a friend who was an angel investor in consumer businesses. And I said, John, what do you think about this idea, right? And he said, I love it. Anything that you can do that can capture a piece of someone's daily routine, what they do in the morning when they first get up, what they do at night when they go to sleep, or any point in between is worth going for. And I jumped up because all I knew was lemon water in the morning. I jumped up and said, John, I've got it. We're gonna go build the morning drink. And that night, 7 years ago, I Googled how to start a beverage brand, and here we are, so.
And
painfully.
And
Yeah.
is the principle still to have a morning drink?
No, it's become so much more than that, right? We're very proud in that we feel like Lemon Perfect can be enjoyed from morning until night and everywhere in between, and that's what we're seeing, right? Whether it's in the morning when you first get up, whether it's at the gym, whether it's with a meal, whether it's at night, evening mixer, it really has taken on just such a different form than what I thought at the beginning. And to be honest, unless you can capture that big audience, right? Unless you can capture that big TAM, you can't win in a big way in beverage, so I'm glad that it's become this.
So let's talk about how you go from this really narrow aperture, because I think there are a lot of brands and founders here who are coming from, I want to focus on my ingredient, I want to focus on this principle, and not saying that you should abandon principle, but this is the thing I'm doing, into something that the consumer tells you what you're doing. So that caused your product to change from its initial approach. So how did that happen?
I don't know about change, Jeff. I think we just found that our audience was just really big, right?
What was your first product like?
Well, we started as a keep refrigerated item.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of our story, right? And I mean, we started as a single SKU keep refrigerated item.
Yes.
Listen, I didn't know much then, right? I'm still learning today, but the short story is we started to get some real traction, right? In Southern California, we launched in what I would call ground zero for emerging food and beverage businesses. You've got a great concentration of natural channel retailers, whether it's Erewhon, Bristol Farms, Lazy Acres, Mother's, Lassen's, Gelson's, that whole group of, and they give brands real opportunity. And so we went in there and we were with Critical Mass Group at the time. They've become a much bigger business. Dan Morad on the sales side, Rob Alschuler on the supply chain side. We had a lot of fractional resources early on. And we were we were a mile deep and an inch wide. Mm-hmm. And we forced it. I mean, we were relentless, demoing day after day after day after. And all of a sudden, I'm walking into the Erewhons, the Bristols, and I'm seeing blown out shelves, right? And I'm like, oh my God, we're driving a really, really expensive car down a one-lane road in the middle of the night, stepping on the gas, and we're gonna crash.
Yeah.
Because you can't win.
Glass everywhere.
Yes, and bodies. Yes, yeah. But listen, I'm unvarnished in this opinion. You cannot win in beverage if you're a keep refrigerated item. Very, very hard. And so we flipped the script. And I said, and we had some incredible authorizations in the produce set. And we told those retailers that we were gonna pull out, and we ended up spending really 3 months reformulating the product to go shelf stable. And that was one of the first, really the second big bet that we made. We actually, before we launched the product, even in the keep refrigerated environment, changed our packaging, right? So that was the second big bet that we made. And I mean, amazingly, You have the COVID-19 pandemic just a few months later after we produced our first shelf-stable bottle. We would not have survived that. And we certainly wouldn't be dreaming in the way that we're building today. Listen, beverage is an execution story. You got to get after it, right? And that's what I learned is that, yes, we want to fight for cold, hugely important, but you also have to just build big display activity. It's all about the action, right? And our team is constructed today on great retail programming led by our president, Jim Brennan, who's a monster on the retail sales side, has been huge for Lemon Perfect, but then just our entire field organization, we get after it. We hustle. We talk about the importance of winning the street fight, we call it, and that's execution. You can't build big displays if you're cold.
Now, you start to get these displays going in. How much have you raised at that point?
I think at that point we had raised 11.6.
Okay, so you've got some nice.
We've raised significant capital, so sometimes it's hard to put it right back to it. But I think at that point it was 11.6.
Okay, and just so we can level set for this $100 million in run rate coming up, how much have you raised overall?
We've publicly raised 42.2. We've had a couple of subsequent rounds. I'm not going to disclose how much we've raised in total, but we've got incredible capital partners from Beyonce and our major investors are wonderful. We have over 300 investors, Jeff. So it is a big cap table.
Yes.
I don't think I would do it again, but I love them all, and I appreciate the enthusiasm that they've given to Lemon Perfect.
Now, at $11.5 million, you start to wonder. You're like, I'm a college coach, so you start to think, are you the guy? And you start to explore that question. Why did that come to a head, and what was your thought process on it?
Yeah, there's so much pressure the minute that you raise $1 of capital. Think about it. Every day, I wake up and I have our team, 90 incredible people today, 2 of which are here, our marketing lead and our supply chain lead, Dana Barba and David Kimmel. And we have 91 people that bleed yellow every day. What a burden that is, right? At the time, we had 13, the one you're talking about. But there's incredible burden as soon as you raise $1 of capital. Immense pressure. This is so much harder than coaching college basketball. Right? I was responsible for 13 players in a locker room. Now I've got team, I've got distributors, I've got, retailers. It's just the list goes on, external suppliers. But Jeff, right when we went shelf stable, that following summer, we were struggling. We were struggling, and I was lost. And
what was the struggle like? What was happening?
Some velocity issues. Mm-hmm. Because every time you change your package, there's lag.
Sure.
And we're going through that a little bit right now, too. We changed from a 12-ounce bottle to a 15.2, and we're just getting through a transition that started in November. Mm-hmm. So there's lag right now. Listen, we just had our second best week ever in company history. We couldn't be more excited about but it's hard. And so we had changed an entire format. We went from a keep refrigerated item that sat in produce to a shelf-stable item that sat in the flavor-enhanced water category. And so, but I didn't process all that at the time. And to be honest, listen, there's a lot more that goes into this than just jumping up and down in a distributor meeting or a customer meeting and hiring people.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it. You got sales, marketing, supply chain, finance, people and talent. So many verticals of the business. And I never ran a business before. Right? I coached. Now listen, coaching, there is great entrepreneurial utility in my past. Sure. Tons, right? There's probably nothing more important than recruiting great people and retaining that talent. But there's a whole lot else. And I felt unequipped. And I decided that I was going to go out and hire a CEO. And the deal was done. The DocuSign had been signed by him. And the night before I was going to countersign. I was in Dallas, Texas. 3 of our investors called me, our early investors, and they said, we bet on you, and you can't make this move. And there might be a time down the road, but not 2.5 years in. And the next morning, I called the CEO candidate, and I said, we're not going to do this. And we really haven't looked back since. We've made incredible progress in that time.
So what have you learned in that time, aside from understanding that there's lag? What have you learned that our people should know?
You need to be persistent, and you need to just have incredible thick skin. We have, I don't know where he is in the audience, we have arguably the best distributor in America, Big Geyser. Jerry Rita, their president, he's on me like you wouldn't believe. He's my best friend and he's my fiercest critic. But think about all the great brands that have come, before us there. And I'm just using that as an example, is that you're gonna get beat on in this business. And you gotta wake up every day and you gotta do a jump, you gotta jump out of bed and you gotta say, I'm here, I'm in, right? And look, I use this expression a lot. There are 2 ways out of the office, my office for me, right? One's in a box, and 2 is with some coins in my pocket, our people's pocket, our distributors, right? Our suppliers. I'm going for option 2. And you just gotta show up every day. This is hard. Jeff, think about how many brands have scaled the mountain. How many brands have actually found the way to cross the finish line first? You have 2% of brands that get to 10 million in revenue. And out of that 2%, only 1 in 5 gets to 50. And you're not selling a business at $50 million in revenue. There's just there's no way. Everyone, we're very fortunate that we've been in the rooms with the big strategics. They want more than they did a year ago too. They want it all. They want growth, they want profit, they want this, they want that, right? So, and we're gonna get there. But you better have the ability to, like we talked about at the beginning, just survive, advance, and have enthusiasm for what you're doing. We wake up every day and we sell a product that we stand on this stage and really believe is better for you than the competitive environment around it. That's magical.
It is, and it's taken real willingness on your part because you're playing this big, long game with, because I would argue that there are different ways to win, right? You can run a $50 million company and have a nice life, but you're not going to walk out with coins in your pocket and for everyone around you, you're not buying racehorses. The question is, what are some of the risks that you're willing to endure to go big like that? And you just went through one very recently that I want you to walk us through to talk about how you evaluate that risk change with your bottle change.
Well, I want the racehorses, so that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
We want to build $1 billion business. We want to build $1 billion plus business, and I want to impact the health and wellness of the American consumer and eventually beyond. That's how I'm wired. That's not for everyone, but that's from day one what I've told our investors is I said it was going to take $100 million of revenue to build, of capital to build $1 billion business, right? And a profitable bit. And we're certainly very much on track. We're not that far away now, which is very, and so that's me. I'm not going to, tiptoe around. That's how we're wired. That's the business that we're building. And we want to be ubiquitous. I want to democratize drinkable wellness. I want Lemon Perfect to be everywhere. That's not a $50 million business that's available in select retailers. That's a couple $100 million business that's widely available everywhere, every street corner of America, right? So look, we felt like convenience retailer is so important in beverage. So we had a 12-ounce sleek bottle, and a couple years ago, we got an opportunity in 7-Eleven in the GLA, Greater Los Angeles area, and we failed miserably.
With that
With the skinny, and that became the inspiration, impetus to go bigger, right? And so now here you are, fast forward, and a couple years later, and we have a 15.2 ounce vessel that when we signed a multi-year deal with Niagara that allowed us to actually bring more value to the consumer with the larger package, more dollar profit for our customers, more dollar profit for our distributors. I mean, these were mind-blowing things that when we looked at the black and white arithmetic, we discovered pretty early on. And there's still a little something left over for Lemon Perfect, although we want share of stomach. So everyone talks about, gross margin, everyone talks about profit, everyone talks about growth. There's this triangle, and it's very hard to have it all, Jeff. Mm-hmm. At the end, you can, but I think it's almost impossible on the way up. You got to prioritize something, and we've said we want to sell as many bottles as we can.
And to get to that, to go from 12 ounces to 15.2 ounces, you can't flip a switch.
No.
So that's the risk I want you to talk about.
I think you have to be willing to bet it all at times.
And how did this comprise betting it all?
Well, listen, you have one product on the shelf, and a couple months later, you have an entirely new product on the shelf. I mean, transitions are hard. I don't think we realized how hard this transition would be. What happens so we took erythritol out of the formula, right? So that was, everyone remembers the press, February 27th of last year. I didn't sleep for weeks and weeks and weeks. So not only did we make a bottle size change, we made a formula change. Feedback's been incredible on the new formula, right? But what happens if it wasn't? When you actually tested it in a much larger sample size? What happens if, our white tag went from $199 to $229? So what happens if we couldn't sell non-promoted at the same units that right, or more? And so you had all these factors that we didn't have answers for. And I had to just make a decision. I said, I think the only way that we climb the mountain is by going into this vessel. And we did it, and our team was unbelievable. I mean, think about this. We had some supply chain challenges last year at our old contract manufacturer where we actually couldn't produce the 12-ounce product. So we were planning on launching this at the beginning of the year. We ended up having to pull up our transition by 4 months, right? And so literally our retail team's going around with little 4-ounce sample bottles trying to figure out how we're gonna sell this thing with we had digital bottles. I don't know how we did it and Herculean effort. We're through it now. I couldn't feel better about where we are in this moment right now today.
Okay. How much did you investigate the risk before you pulled the trigger?
There wasn't really much time. I don't know. I've always just gone on feel, gut. Jeff, this chair, you're going to make, I think a founder needs to probably feel like they're going to make 3 or 4 or 5 really big bet the company decisions over the course of from 0 to finish line. And, look, I'll be blunt. We had to make a decision between our old contract manufacturer who was going to run our 15.2 ounce bottle and Niagara, who we ended up signing with. And they're the biggest and the best, right? But we knew what we had at our old contract manufacturer, and they wanted that business. We knew what we had. We knew that we could get up on the line. We knew that the 15.2 molds were ready to go. I mean, we had it all. And then we had a board meeting where I had to make a decision. And our board said, go with our former contract manufacturer. And, we went around the room, and I think it was 7 out of 8 My brother was the only one. He sits on our board. He's in private equity at Kelso here in New York. And he said, well, flip a coin. I said, oh, well.
Oh, well, that's that's why they pay big
exactly,
private
flip a
equity.
coin. That's board advice.
Equity.
Yeah. But I walked outside, and I don't know if you're familiar. There's a song after the NCAA tournament on Monday night after the national championship called "One Shining Moment."
Has anyone here heard One Shining Moment?
Right? And it's awesome. And I walked outside. It was a really nice January morning. And I listened to the song. And it talks about, in essence, it's one shining moment, right? And I felt like this was my moment to do what I felt like was going to put Lemon Perfect in position to win big at the end.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't want to be playing in AA or AAA. I wanted to be playing in the major leagues. And I walked back into the office, and I told our supply chain lead, we're going with Niagara. And it was the best decision we ever made. But remember, there was a gap. I had to call our old contract manufacturer and say, hold on, after months and months of negotiation, we're not going to sign with you. They could have told me to go F off. And that would have been it. Game over, story over, millions of dollars raised, and we have no product. But, again, you go with gut. The old contract manufacturer, great people. They ended up running our product until we ultimately made the switch. But, one of several big bets.
Well, thank you for sharing that story with us in particular. These are some of the kinds of decisions you got to make. And what I think is impressive about Yanni is he's sticking to what his vision is in making those bets. Depending on what your vision is, you may have a different method, but this is doing the Iditarod naked.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Time goes fast up here.
Oh,
Goodness.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you.